Hello and welcome to Broadsword Wargaming. My name is Ollie and in this video I'm going to be taking a look at 3D printers. This one was sent to me by the guys at Elegoo. This is the Elegoo Mars 2P 4K mono printer, I think. The main thing for me here is I have never touched a 3D printer before. I don't really understand the mechanics. I mean, what even is that in there that looks like a crazy gizmo? I don't really understand how they work or what they do. But here I am, I'm going to give it a go. I've had this in the back of my videos now for nearly a month, and I decided it's time to actually try. So what I'm going to do is try to print the test model that comes with it and see if I can get it to work, see what things happen in the way, see what things go wrong, and if it all ends up a disaster, well, you've got a funny video of me absolutely messing up something that is supposed to be quite simple. All these parts here all came with it. I don't really know what they all do at this point, nor do I really know how anything works. I'm going to stick to the user manual because there is a small tutorial in here, so hopefully, fingers crossed, that's good. You can't really go wrong with plugging it in and turning it on, and surprisingly, I didn't. So that's a great first step. The 3D printer is now on. Here you have the top, this is the case which hides all the gubbins and contains the fumes and all the other bits when it's printing. I consulted the manual to see what I needed to do next and insert some peel porn here. Look at that. It's like a nice Instagram story when you're airbrushing and masking. Anyway, I pulled all these things off because that's what I was told to do, and then followed the next bit. So the unboxing and testing. This is essentially where you calibrate the build plate. See, I learned some terms. You calibrate the build plate so it's straight when the whole print starts. Now, you can raise and lower this quite easily. So there's a nice, lovely slow shot look of it going up. How beautiful is that? And then you attach this build plate to the top. It's quite easy, just a screw. It slides on only one way. And then you loosen these bolts. And these bolts are what is holding the actual plate steady and firm. Now you do need this to be flat. You can just follow the instructions. Honestly, it's really simple up to this point. I don't know what I was so scared about. Because there you go, it's all wiggly now and wobbly. Then it tells you to put an A4 sheet of paper between where the resin tank would be and the build plate. An A4 piece of paper didn't actually fit at all, so I ended up going for A5. I didn't know whether this was going to have much effect. But what we're trying to do here is to get that plate to sit level with the bottom. You just press the calibrate button, whatever it is, return to home or Z, it's in the instruction manual anyway, and the thing starts to lower down. I wasn't sure if this was going to stop. That was something that was panicking me, like would it just go straight through the bottom if I didn't stop it manually? So I was prepared to do so. I was actually standing here like on guard. And then I realized maybe it will. So the instruction says slide the piece of paper in because that's what it needs to calibrate to. So there's me ready to press stop, look, but I slid it in anyway. And I am so scared at this point that I'm going to break it or ruin it. And actually, as it goes down, it meets some resistance and then it flattens out and then it sort of does it again just to check. And then here, you now just have to tighten it back up again. It's pretty firm now onto the base. You can't really pull that paper out, look, so you tighten both the bolts. And what it says in the instructions is, if you can pull the paper out, do. If it's too tight and you can't physically do it, just knock it up 1 mil. If it's not tight enough, you can slide it out, make it tighter again. So I actually managed to get some resistance on that. Then you have to set the Z axis. I don't really know what that means. I guess you have an X, a Y, or Z axis on this thing. So raise it back up now because I'm going to apply and start putting in the resin. You can see where the 2 screws and those sort of hooks are sitting. That is where the resin tank would normally sit, and those screws come down just to tighten it and hold it. At this point, I think I'm almost ready to go. I'm not sure what there is left, so I checked the manual and it talks about checking the UV rays. So to do this, you just press tools and then go through the buttons, press 1, and when you do, that little logo will pop up, and here you can see the UV lights work. And in fact, it's very clever for them to put their branding there. A very nice piece of kit. Next up, it is on to the test printing. Almost there. Now we're starting to look at sort of PPE and getting the resin going. So the first thing to do is apply the rubber seal all around the base of the top of the 3D printer. Now I sped it up. It's quite fiddly. It's easy enough. It's just a little bit fiddly for you guys to watch me do this for like 5 minutes to flatten this up. I wanted to make sure the seal was pretty tight. I didn't know how strong the fumes would be. I know they're not good for you, obviously. I wasn't sure how solid that needed to be. This piece of kit comes with a little USB pen, and you just stick this stick in, and this is where you download all of your files. Before we print anything, make sure to put your mask on. They do provide one, and they provide gloves as well. Look at that lovely background. That's the Patreon wall of fame there in the studio. Now we move on to the resin. Now this stuff isn't good for you. Although, like most things in this hobby, if you're careful and you take the proper precautions, you will be all right. So just don't drink it or breathe it in because it's not good for you. To print this particular model, it says to pour the resin in until it's about 1/3 the way up the resin tank. I'm not entirely sure what's actually going to happen with this once I've done this. I don't know really how it builds. I guess the build plate drops in or it pulls out, or I don't really know. But I followed the instructions. I went just over 1/3 actually. I went to half just to make sure I cover it. But there you can see that's where the maximum line is. Don't overfill it to there, because I assume as the build plate goes into it, it would push it out and it would overflow over the side. And now we move on to the print. So you load the files up onto the USB stick. You can do this, you can do various other files as well, but I'm just using the basic ones they have. Press the print button, press the STL, and here is the shot of it dropping into the resin for the first time. I don't know how many people have seen this before. It looks quite cool. It just drops down, flows over the top, and then it just sits in there. And then about 2.5 hours later, you end up with this. I've just left. I went to pick the kid up from school, came back a few hours later, fingers crossed. I wasn't actually aware there were going to be 2 of these pieces, but the test pieces it prints are these little rooks, like chest rooks. I really wasn't sure what I was going to come back to. They came out wonderfully. I spent a bit of time looking to make sure that the prints were good. There were no weird lines and there were no swirly bits, and there really weren't. And I'd never done this before. It was so easy. I know it'll be a bit harder when you want to start uploading your own things and different models, and you have to look into supports and breaking the supports off. For my very first go, and I'm sure many of you out there had the same experience, it's that easy. This bit was a bit harder. It does come with some scrapey tools, and you do need to get them off the build plate. Oddly, this part turned out to be one of the parts that scared me the most. I wasn't sure if I would damage these prints or if I would damage the print bed, so I made sure to use the correct edge of this to scrape it off. Now you just have to keep working your way around. These do happen to be very thoroughly on there, and I think that's just part of the test build. But when you get them off, there you have them. These are still a bit shiny, they are still a bit wet because they are still covered in the resin. Now the liquid resin got everywhere and it did need cleaning. This wasn't provided with the kit, I must say, but you use isopropanol alcohol. Now I just put this on a cloth, I cleaned the top back end of the build plate and all the screw bits. The bottom end of the build plate is actually still covered in resin. And that's not a problem, it comes with this handy tool so you can rest it up there at a 45-degree angle and it just drips back into the pot. So put the lid on this and you're done. I didn't change or take the resin out of the bottom part, out of the tank, because I was told I didn't need to. You could just leave this in there unless you had a failed print. Then maybe I think you need to clean it out. I'm not entirely sure. And I will figure this out as time goes on. But I just left this now in the corner of the studio with the top on. The fume should stay in there and we should be good to go. It looks like printing these barely used any resin, and this is where people are talking about resin being so cheap. Now to finish these models off, I just cleaned them in some isopropanol alcohol. I poured it into a little plastic tub, gave them a good swoosh around like you do with any resin products, or even most of your other products. You do need to clean them first. This will evaporate and then they are done. The last step is just to cure them. Now this needs to be done, it is UV curing resin, so stick it out in the sun, or if you've got a curing set, which Elegoo do, then you can use that. Essentially, that's it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please do remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit the alarm bell below for more videos to come. Or check out the links below if you wish to support the channel in any other way. There are links down there to Patreon, to places to buy your models, and even links to the printers themselves. I feel like this has been the start into a much larger and longer journey into 3D printing. If you guys haven't tried it yet, do go and give it a go, because it isn't that difficult. If I can do it, I know you can too. So get out there, get printing if you want to try it. Take care, stay safe, and good luck.